Yes, hello and welcome to a beautiful rainy side of West Africa, Nigeria to be precise. And for those that are wondering, Lagos Island, the 16th floor of one of the tallest buildings in Africa. It's Souk News and this is Souk Pulse. Thank you for being there. Thank you for you enjoyed your weekend and you were part of my own weekend and we were also part of your weekend. So we say thank you. For those that were part of early exchange, market insights, Souk Sports, we keep telling you this. Always come back on Souk News and get the best positive information. You can also get some beautiful business ideas and you will know where market is heading to and where government policy is most likely going to tilt towards. And for those particular rumors and bad kind of information that flies through and try to get their ways into you, hey, come here. Let's push them out and tell you what you should do, what you should listen to, and the best places to just arrange your information for the day. It's Souk News, and we are all about positive programming. Thank you for being there, and thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for also tolerating us when we tend to not be at our best. We're always there. Want to say thank you very much. My name is Chooks, John Rogers Chooks, and it's Souk Pulse. Today we are looking at something that people shy away from. People don't want to talk about it. But hey, it's Souk Pulse. We are allowed to argue. We are allowed to bring information up. We are allowed to ask ourselves some particular questions, and so we will. We're not checking the pulse, but we are really feeling it. So I want to say, hey, wherever you are, call up your friends, neighbors, even if you call them enemies, still call them up. Let them know that Souk Pulse has started. So let's join the conversation. Remember, you are allowed to argue where you are watching us from. Today we are looking at foreign trained, certificate carrying, technocrat economics you call them, wherever they've gone to, wherever they've resided, wherever they've studied, wherever they carry the certificate they're carrying. But now we're looking at them in this light. For every foreign trained, foreign served, technocrat, economics you call them, have they fared well in Africa? For those that have come this way and have taken up positions in the economy, the ministries, the ministers, those handling the economy, over the years, Africa is average 50-something years old. Have they fared well? How have they done with the postulations they've given all this while? The policies that they have cooked, baked, and presented across African countries, looking at where we are from and where we are right now. Let's both of us start that banter. Let's start that argument and ask ourselves, have they done well? Every single one of them. We might not mention names, we might not mention specific country, but we'll just look at what is on ground. And to do justice to this particular topic for today on Souk Pulse is no other but, hey, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, please join me as I welcome to Souk Pulse for this beautiful, rainy afternoon, Dr. Idahosa. Sir, you're welcome to Souk Pulse.
Good Nigeria.
Oh, yeah, good Nigeria indeed. You're welcome. Thank you very much. You're wondering? Don't worry, you get used to it very soon. So, sir, let's always start from the beginning. We have across board, we get to see a lot of African countries, from Nigeria to Ghana, to Cote d'Ivoire, to Senegal, to every single one of them. Once there is a change in government, or once there's any major shift in the ministries of finance, across board, you get to see Africans either wailing or telling us where they are from, what their qualifications are from, and they are filling up this particular seat to head ministries of finance, to head those particular portfolios that have to do with the economy. And now we're asking ourselves this question. Over the last 40, 50 years, have this set of technocrats, have they taken Africa from where we're to where we're supposed to be? Have they fared well?
Well, that assessment will be very difficult to make.
Okay, start from somewhere.
Yeah, if we look at it in terms of private sector engagement, you can be rest assured that they've done well to some extent. But if you look at it from public service, that may be very difficult to answer because there are a lot of intervening variables that will make it very, very difficult for people to add value if the enabling environment is not created by the ruling class.
Okay. If we say enabling environment created by the ruling class, it's just like, let me start from your first, where you started. If we look at it from the private sector, let's hit the nail there. They have done well. If we now look at it from this other side, from the public service, when they cross maybe from the private sector to the public service, then we'll now start looking at variables. And if enabling environment, if they could do well when they were in the private sector, if they could amass that wealth of experience, that wealth of performance when they were in the private sector, what is stopping them from replicating their exploit? Be it in the big blue chip companies or be it in any other country, why have some of them, or let me just say, why have those that have not replicated it, what is stopping them from replicating it in Africa?
Well, let's look at the public setting, for example, where, for example, you have a legislature, the executive, the judiciary, basic institution of states, empowering people to deliver value. Some years ago, I was at a certain quarter, and somebody was talking about the then finance minister, and he said, look, the other day she was crying on here, you know, because these are deliberate effort by some certain people to put some people on their nails. And so in that environment, you may have conceived so much ideas. Then, of course, they end in ideals because some certain people will not allow that to be reality. We also have
Okay.
another.
Can I cut you short now?
No, don't cut me short.
Okay, I won't cut you short, but can
Okay.
I ask a question
All right.
along this particular line?
All right.
Like,
Okay.
I had to appeal to you that today is more of argumentative kind of presentation.
Okay.
I had to appeal to you.
Yeah.
So please allow me to argue.
There's no
Okay.
harm in argument.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
but
much.
what part is that you see people set you up for failure.
People set you up for failure.
Oh
Good.
yes.
And they know people set them up for failure. So why did they take the route? Why did you reject it?
Well, you see, the person who's going to set you up for failure is not here telling you that, okay, you come, guy, I'm going to set you to fail. So if you're told beforehand, then you will really would have known that, okay, well, I don't think I'm wanted here. Because sometimes they come with a very hard intention that, look, we want to succeed, we want to do things well, and we are looking for people who are going to add value, and only to find yourself falling to the kind of persuasion, and then you take up the offer, and then by the time you get to the offer and they said, okay, yes, this is how we want to do it. So it is that you see really difficult. Even in some cases, some people who even have turned, oh, well, I can't do this thing anymore, and then they threaten you if you resign.
Okay.
So these are issues that you find within the space, and these real terrible issues, because like I've always said, and I believe what Professor Cloudacre of blessed memory had argued, that we have really not put development on the front burner in the state, and therefore there are a lot of intervening variables that determine how we recruit and get people to do some certain things
We have really not put development in the
on the
front
front
on the
burner.
front
Yeah.
burner. Now, for those that are wondering why are we talking about this on a beautiful Monday, first day of the week, now let me tell you this: if we need to get productive, that is the first line of attack. People that take care and manage the economy. Now get to those that every single minister across Africa, every single cabinet across Africa, because those policies they are going to make will determine whether your business will survive or your business will die. So now let's come back to before they even took the job. Then after they took the job, the CVs most of them are carrying. Now after they've taken the job, is it matching their performance?
Yeah, but depending on which area where you're going to play, if you're playing in the private sector,
I'm looking for those that have come into African countries and are working for government,
yeah,
government cabinet,
yeah, that is,
economic sector,
yeah, that is the point.
finances,
So if this,
CBNs,
yeah,
all of them across.
oh
The
yeah,
CVs they are carrying, is it matching their performance? We are looking at Africa in the last 40, 45 years.
yeah,
Now, some people in the middle of that 40, 45 years have done excellently well. Now, that's why I say we're not mentioning names, so because we are heading somewhere.
Yeah, but if you look at it really, it's also to see what Africa has done in terms of headhunting for talents and skills. Again, permit me to refer to Lee Kuan Yew's action on his experience in Ghana in 1965 when he visited. And he said president, the prime minister, the president, and one very senior minister in Ghana were so excited in introducing a young man who was a first class brain from Oxford that was brought into the government. And he said upon inquiry, he discovered that this guy had a first class in classics. And he asked himself, why will an African country be taking pride in a man who has a first class in classics,
Which of the
where,
classical music?
where their real competitive advantage is in agriculture? That he would have expected that we would have been proud of a young man who had a first class degree in agriculture, because that's what you really needed to take up, because that nature has given to you. But here, they were celebrating a young man who had a first class in reading Greek, Hebrew, and Latin.
Now you're coming.
So I don't know how you're going to use Latin to transform agriculture or industrialization. So these are the kind of decisions and choices that are made by successive regimes in Africa in terms of hunting people from abroad. Because if we're actually serious about development, we will also be careful about how we select who we want to play in certain sector. And that's what Lee Kuan Yew did very well. He was very intentional and which area he wanted to play, and therefore recruited the best of talent first from home and sent them abroad to go and train. And then wherever their citizens were abroad who were doing fantastically well, he brought home and was able to match their pay so that they have the right motivation to contribute to the development of Singapore. And I think that's what many African states have failed to do. It's not the people that are coming that is really the issue. It's the institutional arrangement
For the people that are coming.
that are in place. Like my friend would say, there's a way you design a system that even the Pope become very corrupt.
Okay, before we get to the side of the Pope, we'll get there soon, but before we get to the side of the Pope, why are African nations so fixated on foreign certificates?
We are not fixated on foreign certificate, and I don't think it's a fixation. I only feel it is a kind of a vehicle for legitimizing the authority of those in power.
Okay?
So it's not as a matter of people trying to solve the problem than people who are saying, oh, I am doing well. You see, I brought in and assembled the best of brain to deliver value. And then people are looking at that, seeing it in the form of legitimizing what is rather an illegitimate kind of an arrangement. Because, again, if you were really sincere with ourselves since independence, we've really not had a flawless transition in terms of electioneering and really practicing democracy as it were. That for us, democracy is only a periodic election where people queue to vote. But really, from those who articulated and put this value on the ground, democracy is not just about election. It's also about every decision and thinking that flows into that election.
Okay, now let me take you back to when we started. You said something about the people being set up to fail. You now said something about whoever comes in and mans some of those key roles. Now, for those that are wondering, these are economists. These are people in strategic places who's going to help formulate policies that not just affect the nation, affect every single individual in these nations. Can we say that the real essence of the job is lost on them?
Well, again, you also to look at it from the point of view of theory and practice.
Okay, I will
Yeah,
and do it.
yes. So you need to also put that into perspective to see that these people that are coming, how they run state before really? Because running the state is different from running a company. This is the issue because the products or services that is rendered, they have two different goals. On the one hand is the primitive accumulation of capital.
That's for the company.
Yes. And on the other hand, you are having a social agenda to get people off trouble. So,
So what happens to be the trouble?
yeah,
Poverty?
poverty sometimes, unemployment as it were. It could be diseases, it could be all trouble. So here, uh, you are not determined to say, okay, I want to take a loan and I want to run a business. Then, of course, the final consumer pay off the loan. And then, of course, in government, it's not like that. It's a different ballgame completely. So when people are thinking in terms of what to pull on the ground, you're looking at it, oh, yeah, but this may not make sense in business terms. But in terms of governmental arrangement, it makes some plausible sense because it's not really about what profit that comes back to the system. It's more about what mileage the person who is in charge is scoring by such an act.
Okay, now let's look at companies because you brought companies and you would look at the state. Now for companies, if whoever is manning that particular sector, whoever is manning their marketing or their production line, or whoever happens to be the face of the company is not living up to expectation, not meeting its target, at what still the company will wield an axe and say, hey, thank you very much. At what point can we start looking at and scoring performances when it has to come when it comes to state
Yeah, but
across Africa?
but then again, you also look at it, the value and the equity that such a person is also bringing to the
When you
ground.
say value and equity, how can you measure value and equity? So what exactly is value and what is equity?
Well, it is called electoral values.
Electoral
Values
values.
that you are bringing to the table. The fact that you understand that you have the backing and the support of somebody who is an opinion molder from your locality, who will be able to stand and say, well, if you remove this person, you will not win the vote from our side.
Okay, so it's more of winning votes from a side or winning a block beyond performance of an individual.
Oh yeah, because that's also very fundamental, and this is why a lot of people talk about democracy. Because in terms of power sharing and the arrangement, you must factor all these things into it to see that yes, after election, you remember there's also going to be another election, and all this calculation are put in place because what they say is permanent in politics is always in interest.
Okay, now let's look at policy formations. Policy formation and growth. How have these technocrats all through the years, how have they fared?
You know,
Looking at policies, not just our policies, but policies that also has to do with a lot of the borrowing that African countries have borrowed and the policies they have had to adopt to get those borrowing and where it has kept a lot of African countries. All of them put together, both those that came from Harvard, that came from Oxford, that came from every of it outside Africa. How have they fared?
sorry, yeah, I may have to make some mention of name. I remember on the 100th day in office of Professor Charles Soludo, the former president of Nigeria, Obasanjo, was asked to make some remarks. And I remember that day watching him saying that, oh, he used to have a lot of fun during his tenure when Konjo Iweala came with a whole lot of World Bank and IMF thinking. And Professor Charles Soludo, who was a homegrown economist, was always countering them, that they were like cataract. And he used to take the phone when both technocrats were having the argument because for Charles Oludo, everything World Bank is suspicious and he doesn't want to deal with it. But for Konje, well, I feel that there was some wisdom in it. And he said they will always have this argument. So he asked Charles, write something, and Ngozi, you bring something. Then he will use his own mind to see how to manage. But he was always telling Charles Oludo and say, please, you cannot fight these people, otherwise they will make you to fail and the rest of it. So it's to tell you the kind of environment in which these people are actually playing. So when you are having a centripetal and a centrifugal force in a system, you're moving, trying to move forward. Some people are dragging backward, and you find that you will be on a standstill. And this must also be thinking in terms of how we conceptualize. Take, for example, in the last regime, we had a lot of issues about how to balance or make both physical and monetary policy to sync because the views of those who were driving at both sides were also not aligning. So you see these centripetal and centrifugal forces always within the government circle because people who are coming, they are not coming with the same orientation. And that's what I've always said here, that the real reason is because we have not been able to develop a party culture in Africa where people who have similar view come together to form an amalgam that we may call a political party to contest for election. And therefore, in terms of thinking and reasoning, everybody is tending toward the same direction. But when you have this mix-up of ideas, then you cannot but find confusion and trouble in terms of seeing progress.
Okay, finding confusion and trouble. Let's go back to your submission. Now, for most of these ministers, government officials that occupy a lot of these positions in the economy and around the economy, in the corridors of power, and they are trained outside this country or they've lived outside this country, are they showing up or showing more of policies that they think will work from where they're coming from?
Well, you cannot take that out because people look at it as a model. If it works elsewhere, why can't it work here? Everything being equal. So,
Is everything ever equal?
yeah, but I think things naturally should be equal because you see, economies as people once define it is common sense made difficult. And I think rulership and in terms of governance, everything should just be equal. So that when we are coming out to say this is what we want to do, we are clear enough in our heart that this project we want to execute it, and the people who are going to be behind this project, they've also made up their mind and said, okay, we want to execute it, and everybody is in sync. We agree and say we're going to take off, and so we can be riding on the same direction. And this is for me very important. I don't know if you have ever read Professor Jim Collins' work, Good to Great. You find that he said the starting point for takeoff of every company that has ever transited from goodness to greatness is at that melting pot where, of course, the company decide to say, who are we traveling with?
This set of beautiful, handsome Africans that have come over to join their various governments in whatever portfolio they are handling or giving, do they really know African issues and African problems?
Well, I would want to say they don't know the African issues or African problem. I think that the problem are sufficient and people know what the problem are in Africa. That, of course, there's a need for road, for example, that the people need drinking water, for example. People need electricity or energy. People want basic infrastructure. Healthcare system is working. I think these are universal issues and challenges.
But are those really the problem?
Yeah, because it's fundamental and that's foundational. Because
Don't you think the problem is how do we give people this, not people need this?
no, it is not how. I think it's the problem is well known. That people understand that yes, we need water, we need electricity, we need good healthcare, we need good educational system, and the
That has
rest of
been known
it.
for 50 years.
Yes, for 50 years.
Okay, now, the problem now is how do
Yeah,
we...
yeah, how do you apply them? And this is where, for me, the real issues are. So when they say, yeah, I can be a student of Oxford and have a first class in Oxford, I have never run a company before, or have never run a state before. So it will be very, I don't know which word to use right now, for you to be demanding expectation from me of an experience that I have never had. So it's not the school that really certifies. It is the experience of doing something. And if you have found people who have had that experience, take for example, yes, you were a staff in Chase Manhattan, which is a big company. You left Harvard and they employ you. Only God knows at what height you were in that company. You may not even have been at the policy making part in that particular company before we bring you back to come and head the state. So the experiences are not sufficient. That is what I'm saying, that if African really are desirous, African leaders are desirous of transformation in society, then we must be deliberate and strategic about those we get to headhunt to drive a process. And we will be sure that they have been part of a success story elsewhere. You just imagine, for example, in this your studio, you go to any of our institution, mass communication department, and take the first class and come to making either your own air personality or even the MD of your studio. I don't know how such a person will be able to perform without having the requisite experience elsewhere that he can bring to the table. So these are the real issue because, again, like I said earlier, it is the fundamental that the politics is what brings people to the table. And most importantly, people who may be regarded as strange bedfellows come together in the same room. And you cannot expect to see sanity in that room. All you will have is a lot of argument, and we will use energy debating, and they cannot translate into practice or reality.
Okay. Strange bedfellows, you call it.
Yes, of
No.
course.
Is it possible for Africa to live above political consideration when it comes to handling the economy? Is this something you see?
I
Is it
think
visible?
I think it's possible if the orientation from the education system is right. That we are not meant to see us as divided. I think the bigger problem we really need to contend with here is this turn by turn kind of politics we are doing, where you say, oh, it's our turn to rule, and therefore, oh, our people have not been settled. And by this, merit is sacrificed on the altar of mediocrity. So you really don't get the person to do the good work. And then, of course, people are desperate to see that their turn comes. And therefore, they'll be willing to compromise and sacrifice a lot to ensure that the baton is handed over to them. Now, in that kind of an environment, it will be very difficult for you to put politics behind. But when you have an enlightened and civilized society that realizes that inflation has nothing to do with the ethnic nationality you come from, that poverty does not have color, and they realize that if you go to the market or into a supermarket to buy something, that your ethnicity or tribal affiliation is not a currency, then of course we can start this move toward a civilized society where the common good become the key consideration for decisions that people make. That even those who are going to vote already understand that, look, it is not about where you come from, but it's about somebody who is competent enough to do what is right. And we really don't care who is there as long as it does what is right.
Okay, now let's now go a bit specifics when it comes to the economy across Africa. Now, the market share of exports is not in favor of any African country. Maybe aside South Africa. Yeah, even if it's South Africa. Now, we have a lot of these technocrats that are educated abroad, that are educated outside Africa, and they see this even before they got here. What can we say, or how can we tell them that, hey, this is the first things that need to change? How can they start making changes when it comes to those particular indices? We are not saying let's export more than what those that are giving it to us, but at least let us try and tilt that particular compass a bit.
Yeah, but is to look at the entire gamut of the supply chain, for example. You can take any industry, any particular trade. You see, there's a whole lot that comes into it. And this is what you're going to look at. There are people who are in the field to make some certain things happen. I remember a friend of mine, an Indian, who used to do same trade from Nigeria and was coming here to take garlic and so to sell. He told me a story that he once encountered. And that's a farmer who goes to the farm and they say, tell them, this is how we want it. They say, look, if you don't want to buy, you can go away because there are other people who are waiting for the product. But they needed a certain standard by which this thing should be cut and they take away. So, but because they needed it and because of the quality of what they were taking from Kaduna area and Kano area, they had to now come to establish a factory where they buy those raw and first of all go to cut themselves before they take it out for export. So, which of course was additional cost. This is what I'm saying. So there's a whole lot of intervening variables. What our agricultural institutions, for example, doing to change the orientation and the mindset of the farmer, to embrace new way of farming, for example. Take just the Ruga debate. Whether it's ranching, you call it, or you call it Project Ruga, whatever it is. What's uppermost here is the fact that there is so much in the meat industry which Nigeria has not tapped into. And look at the way this is viewed. And it comes into conflict with national development. I said it here. Denmark is making over 400 billion naira from cheese, which is just a byproduct of
$400
dairy.
billion.
Yes.
Okay, you said naira.
Dollars, not naira.
I wanted to head to Denmark now.
No. Yeah. So they are making so much.
That is huge.
That's huge, really. And that's all from dairy. And our people cannot even see that there are values in that industry. And you see, campaign of calumny, stereotyping within the system.
So is that what is affecting those in charge of the economy in working?
Oh, yes. So if you are made...
How long will they keep giving the excuse?
It's not about excuse. You see, the truth is, I remember some years ago when the politics of Lagos was too hot, and will I call him the ballet now of the Lagos politics, once said somewhere in Osun State, and he said, well, I am only a leader because people are following me. If people stop to follow me, I'm no longer a leader because you are walking alone. So you can't take that one out. Yeah, I may have a fantastic idea as a Greek minister of things I want to do. But the sentiment within the environment will determine whether I'll be successful. And this is where orientation is important. And this is where we really need to put a lot of investment so that we can recondition the thinking of our people. It's very fundamental. Because if you see, for example, in the South today, Southeast, when they are thinking about whether it is cow business, for example, they don't feel they have anything to benefit. They think it is for the people in the Northeast and Northwest, which is not true.
Okay. Now let's
because that industry alone is bigger than the oil industry. So how do we into this resource?
information.
This is what I'm talking about. That's why I talk about national orientation. So we must get to, first of all, remove what Lee Kuan Yew called the third world mindset from the heart of our people before we can create an ecosystem where these advanced ideas and concepts can flourish.
Okay, now let's start winding up. Do you think Africa should look inwards and look more to locally trained economics, locally trained people, locally trained finance people to take care of African problems?
Well, I don't think it's about where people are trained. I really do not subscribe to that. As a student of politics, I watch the debate between the dependency theorists and the modernizers. And the argument is always stated this way, that the modernization theory of political development suggests that for you to be able to advance and move up, there are some certain habits you need to drop that are not compatible with civilization,
Whose civilization?
wherever it is. But the dependency theorists will tell you, oh, wow, we could have been better off if we didn't meet these people at all. But I've asked the question, in the last 60 years, thereabout, we have severed relationship with these people. How come we have not been able to evolve?
Can we say is the foreign experts that
It has nothing to do with foreign expert. So what the problem really is the fact that, yes, there's some element of truth in the dependency school, and there's also some elements of fact in the modernization school.
so how do we marry
So
both?
we need to marry both. That there are some habits we need to take away. I was talking to a friend of mine in Kigali the other day, and he said to me, he said, Idausa, do we need World Bank loan to have our street cleaned?
Do we
Do we really need loan
do we need a bank loan?
to get the street clean? Need a loan.
They said no.
Need a loan. So this is what we can do for ourselves. But you look at the streets in the whole of Africa. People are very, very convenient in refuse from their house to come back in the middle of roads.
Not all the streets. In some areas, some cities in Africa, not most cities.
And this is why there's so much debt everywhere.
In those places,
How many cities are clean in Africa?
a whole lot.
There are very few.
A
We can count them on our fingertips.
no. 54 countries, a whole lot.
We can count them on our fingertips.
There are 36 states in Nigeria. I know a particular state, if you drop refuge from your car, sorry,
Yeah.
in
So,
Nigeria.
yeah, but you can drive around and see how waste are
In
distributed.
some other states, not
Not
that.
across the states in the federation.
Okay. Now let's look at this. We got to bring this up so that, hey, if we say we are going to get productive, we need to all pinch ourselves from time to time and tell ourselves some basic, ask some questions. Yet, for when we ask those questions, we argue it, and yes, we talk. Then we'll come back and we'll align and realign if we need to. Now let's drop this and before we go. If Africa is saying let's hire from outside Africa, if Africa is saying let's hire those that have come with this certificate, now let me ask this. This is just me asking. Does it look like some of these people within these African countries serving in this key position in economy are doing the bidding of where they came from?
Well, you cannot take that out completely. Yeah, but bidding within a context. Because most of the time you're also looking at this system that you're looking at, he said, look, these are the values that grew this civilization, which we aspire to be like. Take, for example, in 2006, at the heydays of Obasanjo, we needed to take a loan. And World Bank was declaring that they won't give Nigerian loan. Why? Because they said the system was not transparent. That there were no law, for example, for fiscal responsibility. And the procurement system was opaque. So if you give loan to such system, it will not work. If you want us to give you loan, you need to set up a procurement system that's transparent, that guarantee accountability, competitiveness, inclusiveness. I don't think those values were meant for the society that were prescribing it. These were values that they felt that could help our system to do better. And of course, in a hurry, quickly they put up those two acts, the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007 and the Procurement Act 2007. And it will interest you to note, for example, that even the structure that was required by the Procurement Act, that should be a procurement council, will be the real managing organ for procurement of certain threshold, up to the time we are speaking, has never been set up since 2007.
And the loan was gotten.
Oh, yes, of course you do. So this is the issue. And it even take another government the courage to even sign the act after the act was passed. So these are issues that you find within the system. That, yeah, it's not just about doing the bidding, it's supposed to be doing what's civilized, things that you feel that are normal. And every system can see that this is the way we are going and we are doing things rightly. We are inclusive in terms of consideration. We are transparent. We are open. That people can see what you're doing. But most of what we do, they are all laden with secrecy. So this gave room for speculations, rumor mongering, which reduced the trust and credibility of governmental institutions. This is what, of course, those people really will prescribe for you. They're not asking you to bring money to their country. They're only asking you to organize your environment very well. And if we can get to that point where, for example, there is openness, there's transparency in what we do, there's accountability in what we do, and we know who is responsible for who, and we can hold people responsible and accountable for things not done well, you'll find that we will have a system that works. What we currently do not have is a system that works. And once systems start working, you find that things fall in shape. The development we covet will start to manifest.
Thank you very much, Dr. Idahosa. It's always a delight having you on Soup Pulse.
My pleasure as always to be here.
Thank you. And to everyone that was part of this Soup Pulse today, you've heard us. We say, don't stop talking. So you might not have picked up what is happening in your own state or in your own country, but just put your ear close to the ground. You will hear that argument. And it is your responsibility not to keep quiet. So for every technocrat out there, for every foreign trained person out there, hey, we have no bias, we have no dog in this fight of yours. But we believe that whatever you carry, let your country be at the forefront. If your certification, if your learning, if your experience is not progressing the productivity of your state, then you're not helping us. Everyone needs to be on ground. Every hand needs to get dirty and get your state, your nation, Africa working. We say thank you very much. We'll do this again tomorrow. My name is Chooks, John Rogers Chooks. See you tomorrow.